New data shows that rent is finally falling across the U.S. The most significant drop is in Las Vegas. While the national median rent is down 0.5% from May of 2022, they are down 6% here in the Valley. Markets in California's Inland Empire as well as Phoenix trailed just behind. But despite the drop in rental prices, Fox 5's Mike Allen found it's not actually doing much to help people afford a place to live here. He joins us live now to show us what he found.
Yeah, Jacqueline, I talked with about a dozen homeless shelters today. Not one of them said they've seen a decrease in the amount of folks coming in as people experiencing homelessness.
Our shelter is completely full every night, and we're continuing to see families that are struggling to find a place to live.
Juan Salinas, director of social services for the Salvation Army's Las Vegas shelter, says he has seen a surge of people experiencing homelessness in the last year. Despite a 6% drop in rental prices in the Valley, Salinas says affordability is still a major problem.
First and last month's rent, you have to make 3 times the amount to be able to even be accepted. So that makes it very difficult for a family that's working on possibly just minimum wage.
That tracks with data that shows rent has increased at a rate that's 50% higher than income has increased in Las Vegas since 2009. The last few years have made it especially tough as wages took a big hit during the pandemic, while we simultaneously saw huge increases in cost of living.
The rental prices probably, everything went so high, then it went down, but yet our wages are not kind of leveling either. So that makes it hard for families.
The average one-bedroom apartment in Las Vegas goes for about $1,100 a month, according to Rent.com. 6% of that is less than $70, which helps some folks out, but still leaves those most in need of housing out to dry.
A rent cap bill called the Neighborhood Stabilization Act died in the state legislature earlier this year, but still, we did see that 6% decrease. Reporting live tonight, Mike Allen, Fox 5 News, local Las Vegas.
And as it turns out, the overall housing market is also seeing the same trends for rentals. Data from Las Vegas realtors shows since last year, the median home price in the Valley fell 5.7%.